any normal race car driver would think that you're crazy for trying to pull that off. Before I went to the corner, he said, keep your foot to the floor. If you don't, you're not eating food. Every single car you see, every attempt, you take it no matter what it is. In the end, if you're not having fun with it and you're only going out to win the trophy, you're not racing, you're just driving.
How's it going, guys? My name is PeterVanVoorhis, and today we are here with not only a very special guest, but a good friend, someone who is probably one of the most insane race car drivers in the world. If you guys have not heard of him, you will be hearing about him soon. And today we're here with none other than Steven Aghakhani. So great to see you, man. We appreciate you coming here. Thank you for being with us. So give us the lowdown. Who is Steven? What makes you special? What's other than maybe the obvious that people might be able to see here about you? We'll let them figure that out soon. But what makes Steven special? What's your story?
I think it's just basically, rather than just having a normal racing life and dedicating all my life on racing, I still, like to have a normal teenager's life and go out, have fun, occasionally parties, look into cars and do just anything I can with them and just spend a bunch of time with friends.
Absolutely.
It's basically just, keeping racing in my school balance. I always try to keep a really good social life.
Yeah.
Because that always, helps me race just because,
of course,
always have a positive mind.
I think that's really interesting when you talk about that mindset thing, because we were talking a little bit earlier. I think that the discipline and the drive and the stuff that you learned in racing, so much of that is cross-applicable. How have you managed that to be someone who's clearly a top-tier professional in what he does, but you're 15, you're a teenager, you have, you're just probably starting to date, starting to have all these things. How do you manage that? What is that like for you? Or has that just always been the norm?
It's basically just always, at the start it was definitely really hard for me because it was a lot for me to take in and try and balance everything out. But later in time, as things as racing got a lot heavier and I got more used to it, it just kind of just became a second thing for me to do. And it's just
absolutely,
yeah, it's just always before a race, or if I'm going to the track, I'll usually sleep out. I love sleeping, actually.
That's awesome.
So I'll usually sleep.
Work hard, sleep hard,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll usually sleep and rest and listen to music before a race, just get me in the zone.
That's awesome. What does the preparation look like for you before a race? I mean, obviously, it's something that I think a lot of us, and it's probably something we'll touch on the interview in a little bit. I think a lot of us have this perception of racing, whether it's NASCAR or around the track, whatever the technical term is that I'm missing here. But so many people, they have this conception that it's just like Forza or something. What's the biggest thing that shows it's different? What is that like for you to actually be in that cockpit versus just being a simulator? What does it feel like to you?
The difference would actually be, being in person, feeling how the car actually moves, because a simulator can only represent the car so much, but actually being in the car and being in the moment, having the actual heat or the cold or the temperature hit you and, feeling the tires go away, just because a simulator can only represent so much. And actually, racing against someone, even though a simulator is supposed to be, the closest you can get to actually racing a car, it can never actually match real driving experience, especially in high-end GT racing. Yeah. Spec racing maybe, but it's just in the high-end GT racing with the more top-end, quicker cars, it's a lot harder to replicate that. Just because they're rare and hard to come by to get one and fully do a simulation on it. Whereas a Spec Miata or a Spec E30, you can just they're literally lying around. You can take one, perfect it, and then it'll be perfect on a simulator. Whereas the GT car always has a problem. So it's always the biggest thing, but it's basically just being in the moment and actually experiencing and hearing and seeing everything, rather than just being in the simulator, because you can only move, so much and feel so much of the track.
Absolutely. So for you, I mean, when you're out there, what is that hot like? What is that cold like? I mean, what is it like when you first start up in the morning? I know it gets to 150 degrees, something like that, and there's no AC. You're in a racing suit. Tell us indeed, what is that like? I can't imagine feeling that. What does that feel like? It sucks. But you're in a Mercedes when you're doing it, so it could be worse though. You know, so it's cool. But yeah, so it's hot and it sucks. So what? Yeah.
I mean, it's just that whereas being in a simulator and actually being in the heat, having sweat falling off your forehead, having your arms get tired, because you can always take a break on a simulator. in a race, you can't really, stop, pull over to the side, get out of the car, and sit there for a second.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's just a totally two completely different worlds.
There's no opportunity to stop.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have to, train yourself to just keep going and pushing. And that's kind of like, even if your times are slowing down, as long as, you're still pushing and, not letting your head get too far ahead of itself and making a mistake, then you'll be fine.
Absolutely.
But it's just kind of like having the temperature. Like, I think temperature is the worst thing, just because the heat can do so much to like the human body. It can tire it out, mess with the mind, and completely make you mess up a whole race.
Yeah.
Whereas if your arms get tired, you can always like really quick shake your arms up and get them going again. But it's just once your mind starts going, it's really hard to bring that back. So that's the biggest thing that race car drivers need to train, is just keeping their mind completely focused the entire race.
So for you, it's the mental way more than the physical. Yeah. It's only the mental. When did that click in your head that was the defining thing for you? That it was not just your ability to take those lines and to do things, but like it was your mentality that was going to make you a champion and has made you a champion?
It was basically when I was younger, at 12 years old, starting and actually first driving a GT car. I was super slow, and because I was slow, I wasn't driving the car hard, and I wasn't pushing my body to its limits on how far and how long I can drive for. So I didn't experience that, and at that time it was basically physical level, just because I wasn't used to driving a race car. Whereas a street car, you have full power steering, a much easier braking system, and the car's a lot softer. Whereas the race car really kicks your ass and beats you up. So basically, at the start it was physical, but now, driving now, the physical isn't an issue for me. It's basically I'm basically at the point where fighting for lap times, it's how hard do you want to push yourself, just because the car can physically brake farther and turn harder, but it's, do you want to push yourself to do it? Because that's the biggest thing, is trying to get past that boundary. And that's every single race car driver's problem. But the thing is that if you can get past that boundary, then that's what separates a top tier driver from a good race car driver.
And what is that boundary for you? Give us an example of a 90% race and a 100% race. What is you like? I'm not saying you're one-handing it, but you're going ham, you're going well, you're going around the track, going fast. And then there's I'm winning this thing. So what is the mental difference in your head? And you're probably always going for 100% in the races, but just hypothetically, if it were just, a 90%, what is the difference in that boundary for you?
Basically, it would be to not take every single risk and pass that you can. It's basically try to save the car partly, but still, keep a really good pace up and not get passed. Whereas, that being a 90%, whereas 100% would basically be every single car you see, every attempt, you take it no matter what it is. And it's basically if you need to make up every single little position possible. That's basically what separates the 100 from the 90. And even though it sounds like such a small number, 10%, it does so much, especially in racing.
I believe it.
Yeah,
it's probably actually the only thing, because everyone's gonna have a base time.
Yeah, just because if you put into an actual situation, whereas during one of my races, I had to start in the back of the pack, and I didn't like that. But the thing was that because of how fast my car was and how aggressive of a driver I am, it was more or less the hazard to put me in the back, just because losing my qualifying position, because I had qualified second place, but I got put in the back, which is 31st.
Why was that?
I missed a driver's meeting. I was eating lunch.
I respect it.
Those
kids.
Nothing gets in between me and eating food.
I respect it. So, you got to keep your weight up. You got to have your endurance.
Exactly. I have to make sure my body's all prepared for the race. And so having that happen, in a matter of a lap and a half, I was back in second place. But it was the fact that every single car I saw, I passed no matter where it was. If it was in a braking zone, in mid-corner, coming out of the corner, down a straightaway. I remember start of the race, I passed 6 cars with 2 wheels on the dirt, on this just the front straight. And then going into the first corner, it was 3 cars wide, and I'm still squeezing and passing past, and going past people. It was basically just such dumb moves that any normal race car driver would think that you're crazy for trying to pull that off. I mean, one of the craziest ones was...
It's almost like you were 13 when you were doing that.
Almost. And I mean, one of the craziest moves was one corner, it's like basically uphill and like a blind drop. Going into that, I was passing a Mustang, and like a Mustang like Fox body built track car, and going
you can
into
make fun of Mustangs on here. My brother will be watching. He has one. I would actually love if you would do that.
I mean, hey, they're good, but I mean, they're getting better. They got some work to do though. But I mean, going up into the corner, like as soon as he's already turning in and right just about to hit the apex, like basically like if you hit the apex quick enough, your car should be lifting in the air. Yeah. As he's turning in, basically right before he hits that corner apex and goes over the crest, my car flies by him, like basically almost all
like,
fours going up in the air and like going over the dirt.
Is that on video?
I think we have in-car footage of that. But I mean,
we can get a cut of that. That is sick.
That was probably one of the craziest fastest I've ever done.
And that was one of, I mean, were you a little bit newer driver then? Or
no, that was in the race and me starting in the back.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So that was like halfway towards the end of the first lap.
No. I mean, you as in terms of racing career were newer. I mean, I thought this was a few years ago. You know, so
that was 2 years ago.
So you had about a year or so of experience.
Give or take.
Yeah. So obviously you have 3 years now. So
yeah. So finishing that, like as I went past him, I was like, what the hell did I just do?
Looked like a badass. That's what you just did. You looked really cool.
It was a really cool pass though.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that a lot. So Steven, give us an idea of your backstory. When did you start racing? When did you realize you wanted to do it? The whole shebang. We want to hear it all. I know it's great details.
So starting out, even being as young as 4, I've always had a strong passion for cars, and like, you know, whether it's cars, looking at cars, cleaning them, or being in them and, you know, going fast in them. It's just always being around cars was kind of like a happy thing for me when I was at such a young age, especially because my father was a car collector and also a race car driver. And on top of that, his father was also a car collector and he owned a mechanic shop too. So it's kind of ran in our family of being a car family. At age 6, I started doing go-karts, age 6 to 7. And then I was doing go-karts for maybe 3-4 years. Age 11, I got into my first street car and a first like street track day event, and we just kind of went out to see how I would do with the driving experience, like of how much I learned with karting. And then beginning of age 12, like just barely turning 12, I went to go train with Michael Essa, the Formula Drift champion, on car control and drifting to see if I wanted to go down that path or if I wanted to go down circuit racing. And my father saw that I definitely enjoyed drifting, but he knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And he was right. Even though drifting is like, you know, really fun, everyone loves doing it, it's just that's not what I wanted to do, just because I wanted to, you know, go fast rather than go sideways. But going past that, late of me being 12 years old, we got into our first race car, the Lamborghini Gallardo Super Trofeo, which is Lamborghini's actually first built race car, which is still part Audi because the engine and the drivetrain and everything.
And that's the one you bought from Spencer Burke, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Spencer if you're watching this.
And then we were driving that car for a year, moved into the Huracan Super Trofeo, drove that for another year, and now moving on to 14-15, we got into the Huracan Super Trofeo Evo, and now almost driving that car for another year. We're now moving into GT3 cars just because I started at such a young age. I want to get as much seat time as possible. So that's why we're training really hard, and that's why we're basically going through cars in almost a year, just because we're pushing them to as far as they can go, and we're basically, you know, outrunning ourselves with the car, and we need to move on to the next car.
So let's just hit a few more topics before we kind of close out. I know that we chatted a little bit about your dad. I've had the chance to talk about him today. How has he helped kind of shape you as a racer and as a person? What role has he played in that? Because I know he's huge for you.
He's definitely given a basis of like where like I'm going to start and like what direction I'm going to go in. So basically him doing that, it's basically like the rest was up to me to take it and continue it and push to get where I am and where I am now, and basically to, you know, keep going. That's what I have to like focus on right now. So he brings, you know, the sponsors, gets the cars, the team and everything, and it's my job to take it out, use it, and push everything to the limits and get as far as I can with what we have. And like that's like what he's done. I'm like super thankful because he's like 100% supportive about it. You know, whatever choice we get, like there was no argument if I should do like the top brands like Porsche or AMG. It was like he supported me doing AMG, and that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. And then now switching over to AMG, looking at the support they've been giving, we can tell that this is definitely the right choice.
Yeah. So what do the next few months look like for you, Steven? You obviously, I was looking at this. I don't know if you guys can see this. First place, October 26th to 28th, 2018. We're filming November something. I have no idea what the date is. It's November something. This was like 4 weeks ago. So he's been doing some stuff. Are you going to be doing more of these races? Was this like the very end of before you moved to GT3? So you're like, all right, got to win that to go to GT3. How are you just going to go out and we're going to collect some trophies over the next 6 months? What does that look like? Or it's just a lot of training for GT3?
It was basically, we're training for GT3 up until March. Then we're going back to the Intercontinental GT Challenge to do the PWC 8-hour race, I believe. So basically this was a test race to do it in our Super Trofeo, see where we stand, see where the other GT3 cars are, you know, who's driving. Then we can do research on them, how they are, how long they've been racing for. Basically gain experience and driver knowledge to come back next year with the AMG and take first place.
I love it.
And basically I always like say it's one thing to, you know, always have data and like the strength to drive, but it always comes down to who has the most knowledge, because that's where you can always win. Because you can be a terrible driver, but if you're told to do something and you do it, then you're fine, you know. Actually, I mean, relating to that last sentence, when I was super young, still driving the Gallardo, I was really scared at Bunwillow driving the car, and there was one corner where you could easily go, you know, flat out on and save a bunch of time, but I could never push myself to do it just because I was scared. And we had one of our engineers stay on the radio. Before I went to the corner, he said, "Keep your foot to the floor. If you don't, you're not eating food." And that was a really big like step for me because I was really hungry that day.
Oh, they actually weren't going to feed you?
No, they were not going to feed me. That's happened before. I have not done good in practice, and I have not gone lunch that day until I actually did good in practice.
Hell yeah. It's like some military stuff. This is not playing for, you know, if I pass someone in Forza, I feel pretty cool, but that is some actual dedication there. Wow.
I mean,
I'm rarely impressed, but I'm pretty impressed by that.
I mean, that was like, you know, a huge change just because seeing like ever since like that happened on that one day, you know, I shaved seconds off on practice just because I can see how much the car can actually do when you're fully capable of pushing the car. If you have the driver knowledge of a driver already doing that exact corner and replicating it, but a lot faster with the exact same car and the exact same setup, there's no reason why another driver can't do it. It's just pushing him or her to physically go out and do it. And that's one of the biggest things, is getting past that mental barrier to actually go out and do it. Yeah. And that was like, you know, one of like the craziest things. And ever since then, it's always, every single time I start plateauing out on the track, I go one corner at a time. Okay, I'm going to try and go faster in this corner. If I can't go faster in this corner, I'll see why. And if I see that I'm already maxed out compared to another driver, I go, okay, back down to that corner. I already know the limit for that. But let's say if there's another corner and I'm way off, I'll be like, okay, throw the lap away, just focus on that one part to go, you know, connect it with the last three corners. And basically just get into the habit and flow of doing that one section really fast. And it's just training your mind to go do it and just keeping like more knowledge, and the team gets more data, and then other drivers on your team could also benefit from you and you can benefit from them. That's the point of having, you know, several drivers and several engineers as well.
Yeah. So it's almost like just the sheer amount of practice and repetition and all of that, that's what allows you to get from that 90% to 100%, because if you miss that one opportunity to get that safe pass in that split second or whatever on that corner, or hit the dirt and pass 6 cars at a time or whatever you did, you're not going to win the race. You might have one chance to do that. I mean, you can do it recklessly probably, but you can only do it recklessly so many times. You're never going to be a champion race car driver.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always kind of like, if you think about taking a pass, if you're thinking about taking the pass, you've already lost the window to go take it. You can't think.
It should just be a second nature thing.
Exactly. You can't think when you're taking a pass. You just have to go out and do it. I mean, if you put a second thought into it, you've lost the chance, and you're going to slow down. And you're probably going to risk both your car and the other driver's car too, if you still try to force that pass.
Yeah. Let's conclude this with this. What is the one thing, maybe that we haven't discussed, maybe that we have, that you would like just everyone to know about racing? What's like, maybe just a fun fact, like something lighthearted, entertaining, something that they don't know a whole lot about it, like your inside jokes that you have, or the camaraderie that you have with the crew. What's your racing family like? Something like that, What's cool about it? What makes it special for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one thing to have the serious racing team, and they'll always go out, they'll do an amazing job, but it's also, I think, one thing to, connect with their crew, make jokes, just have fun with it. Because in the end, if you're not having fun with it and you're only going out to win the trophy, you're not racing, you're just driving. If you're racing to go have fun and actually enjoy driving the car, rather as you see it as a burden to go out and just drive, there's no point in racing. And you can relate it to anything. It doesn't have to be racing, but if there's something that you want to do and something that you love doing, there's no point in holding yourself back. You should just give as much effort as you can into it, because maybe there's a chance you can never do it again. No one knows when our time's up, so you always have to take every chance that you can and every opportunity and window that you can get through.
Yeah, I love that. Well, what better place to end this interview than Steven? I, of course, appreciate you taking the time with us. This was super insightful. Probably going to be a little bit interspersed with the interview, but tomorrow we're going to be headed to Thermal Racetrack. Going to watch you take out the new AMG GT-R in the garage, and I may be in the cockpit, so that'll be a little scary, but I'll wear my Depends and we'll be all good. So appreciate, that was an awkward ending, but I'm going to keep it in there because it was authentic. I made a Depends joke. It's okay. Anyway, Steven, we very much appreciate you being out here. Thank you so much for taking the time, and look forward to hopefully having a follow-up with you sometime soon when that trophy stack is even bigger, which I know it will be. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Cool. I always told you I'd give you unfiltered and authentic content, so I'm going to look him in the eye and give him a better handshake this time because I missed the first one. Steven, appreciate you coming out here, buddy. Thank you so much. I've had a great time. All of you guys, thank you so much for watching, and check us out at Thermal Racetrack tomorrow. Probably a separate video, interspersed a little bit. We'll figure it out. See you guys soon.